president's meeting with the Federal Reserve chief comes as inflation has reached a 40-year high. We want to talk a little bit more about this. We are joined now by Bethany McLean, financial journalist and contributing editor for Vanity Fair. Thank you so much for being with us. Last year, Treasury Secretary Yellen said inflation would only be a temporary setback. But how crucial is it that she admits she's wrong now about inflation?
I don't view it as that crucial. She was on the record as saying it was temporary. So was Chairman Powell. It's very obvious that they were wrong. So I don't think they have much choice but to admit it. There's not a lot of debate that they were wrong and badly.
And badly wrong. But she pointed to the now unforeseen events of the invasion of Ukraine, China's lockdowns. But even with all of this unprecedented time that we've been in, is the Fed behind the curve? Or has it been too slow to react to the rates of inflation?
So there's an argument that the Fed was very much behind the curve. In the wake of the giant stimulus passed during Donald Trump's presidency, the CARES Act, there were a lot of financial market participants who said inflation is coming. There's no way this is not inflationary. Biden continued to pump money into the economy. The Fed continued to pump money into the economy via this process of asset purchase, this known as quantitative easing, and also by keeping rates low. And there were a lot of voices saying this is going to lead to inflation. And the Fed and the Treasury Secretary Yellen said, no, whatever signs we're seeing are transitory. So you can certainly make an argument that inflationary pressures were in the works for a long time, even before recent events.
But President Biden obviously trying to send a message to the American people that he is doing everything he can to support the Fed doing their jobs. However, is it the president's responsibility, in spite of the fact that the Fed oversees financial or fiscal responsibility, fiscal policy, should he be changing policy at all?
So first of all, let's give Biden kudos because his predecessor, President Trump, put a great deal of pressure on the Fed to act as Trump wanted the Fed to act. And it's really fantastic to hear Biden coming out and saying the Fed is independent. I think that's really important. There's been a lot of political pressure directed at the Fed, particularly in the wake of the pandemic or as the pandemic hit. It's great to have Biden reasserting the Fed's independence. That said, it's also a little bit of a duck and weave. It's a bit of this is the Fed's responsibility, not my responsibility. So, hey, everybody, look over here at the Fed. Don't blame me. I think he actually happens to be right. I think some of the spending packages that Biden passed certainly added to inflationary pressure, but inflation was in the works before Biden took office. The Fed's policies date back to the wake of the financial crisis. So this has been in the works for a very, very long time. And obviously, President Biden is not responsible for what's happened in the Ukraine and for the supply chain issues continuing to come from China's zero COVID policy.
Well, we don't learn too much by looking back right now in this situation, especially with so many Americans under financial pressure. Let's look forward. And so many are concerned the Fed could raise rates again as they have incrementally. But some analysts believe that there should be a big jump in interest rates to fix inflation. What's the proper way to do this?
The problem is the Fed has backed itself into a corner through all these years of keeping interest rates near zero. They now have no choice but to start raising rates aggressively in order to tamp down inflation. And what's really ironic about it is that a lot of the Fed's policies in previous years have been designed to help those at the bottom of the income spectrum, and by encouraging job growth and by keeping interest rates low. And it's backfiring badly now because those at the bottom of the income spectrum are those who are most hurt by inflation. And so I think the Fed is between a rock and a hard place. They very desperately need to get inflation down, but raising rates has the risk of tipping the economy into a recession.
Bethany McLean, thank you so much for joining us this morning on Morning in America.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for watching. Make sure to click on the red subscribe button below so you can get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.